Hi, this is Mary Greendale, and we're doing another issue of Just Thinking. Today, we're going to be talking about the town meeting warrant. Now, if you didn't know and you haven't kept pace, and who could during this whole COVID thing, town meeting is slated to be held December 5th at 1 o'clock. That's a Saturday at 1 o'clock, and it's down at the Adams School. Now, we are getting ready. The town has its warrant ready. The town meeting may not happen. So we're all going to have to stay tuned because COVID continues to move and we're not sure what we're going to be doing. So at any rate, I've got the two people who should be able to fill in all the blanks about what's going on for that night. I have first the chairman of the board of the select board. Someday I'll get used to not saying board of selectmen. The select board, John Cronin. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Mary.
And Travis Ahern, our town administrator. Good morning, Travis.
Good morning.
All right, so then traffic and sound engineering studies. I know that some of this has got to relate to some very old problems. In fact, you've mentioned, commercial traffic on Lowland or Woodland, and I don't know if anybody's mentioned South Street today, but I certainly will. I know you've been thinking about it and talking to DOT and so forth and so forth, but what is it that first of all, I don't know if you guys, well, certainly not you, Travis, but John, do you remember having a town engineer here in your lifetime?
No.
Well, I do. There was one down at the highway department. So, and then we had a building inspector that also happened to be a civil engineer. So, for some years, we've actually had in-house engineering. And from my experience there, it made life so much easier. And you always knew you had information that was designed with the intention to take care of the town, not the whatever else. It wasn't a for-profit business. This was, part of the team. I wish we had that. But in lieu of that, what is this?
This is the centerpiece article, in my opinion, for the warrant. Over the last 6 months, our board has tackled long-standing traffic issues in various neighborhoods in Holliston. First, starting with the Lowland Industrial Park neighborhoods, we conducted a Zoom meeting this summer that included over 130 people. We heard from dozens more who are concerned about the impact of commercial vehicles in their neighborhoods and the access roads leading in and out of Lowland Industrial Park. Almost immediately after that meeting, we heard from the South Street residents who were enduring similar impacts from trucks traveling through South Street to and from Medway, which connects by way of Clark Road. We were immediately confronted with these, as you pointed out, long-standing issues. As we began to engage MassDOT and understand what the process entailed, we recognized that we'd had a couple of what's called paper exclusionary roads, or roads that had had signs put up by prior boards to impede commercial traffic. Those are not enforceable. So we also discovered, Travis found out that we actually had a couple of other roads, including Woodland, that were already confirmed exclusion roads through the MassDOT process. We need traffic engineering or traffic count studies that are stamped by an eligible certified engineer to make the case for any roadway to be considered an exclusion. Those applications are then sent to MassDOT, who will accept those roads upon certified counts. This article gives us the tool to hire this vendor, this contractor, to give us the data on the roadways that are most affected by commercial vehicle traffic. We talked last night a little bit about the timing, because residents, and I completely sympathize with them, they understand what we're doing, but their impatience is sort of bred from years of inaction, years of inertia, if you will. Nothing's happened, and they're growing impatient because they see what we're doing, but they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Last night, we talked broadly about some expected timeframes, and at town meeting, I expect this will probably gather some more interest. Once we secure this contractor, hopefully by the end of calendar year 20, we will engage their services for the respective roads. I don't know if you have them handy, but the scope of this work is limited to the areas that we just talked about and the surrounding community roadways. The engineer's report could conceivably be given to us sometime this early spring of 2021. We'll use the data in our application to MassDOT, who told us that they would reasonably turn around most applications within 1 to 2 months. So my hope is that by the end of fiscal year 21, that would be next June, we could be looking at approved commercial vehicle excluded roadways that finally redirect truck traffic onto state numbered roads and leave these streets, these side streets, which were never built for those vehicles to their original design, which was personal vehicle traffic. So ultimately, this is a small amount of money for a large gain and a huge improvement for quality of life for these individuals who've really endured too much. We'll be putting out the word up to December 5th for the residents who've been working with us to show up at town meeting to make their voices heard on this article.
This is a long-standing issue, and as a former resident of South Street, and that was more than 20 years ago, it is not new. But right now there is something else that we haven't talked about, and that is the proposed development at 555 Hopping Brook Road. And Holliston, we all say that we need to have business, we want to have business, and we don't want to be bad neighbors. And I fully subscribe to that. I think that's essential. But by the same token, I don't think it's fair to take it out on one particular street, and South Street, and Lowland as well, but South Street for the moment. In looking at all of this, I'm sort of articulating here, the point is not to hurt business, but rather to do what, frankly, the law already requires, which is that those trucks belong on state routes. That is really what the state and the feds intend. And so they don't belong on places like South Street or Locust Street or High Street or whatever. So again, this is just another old project that, is finally getting looked at. I personally certainly hope that this passes. I do have one question for you, and that is I participated or listened to the Lowland meeting with 130 people. I did not see or hear from a whole lot of the businesses from Lowland Street, and I want to know if you have gotten contacted by them and if they have their concerns, because they need to be listened to too. I mean, this isn't, we can't exclude them. So what's the status with the businesses that are on Lowland Street?
Yeah, and a great question. The status is, when we originally started the Lowland Industrial Park dialogue, letters were sent to all business owners as well as the abutters about this meeting. I personally spoke to a couple of business owners about the impact of truck traffic on their businesses, and I know you met and had several conversations with additional business owners. I think for a lot of practical reasons, they chose not to be publicly facing with their thoughts, their concerns, but we have heard directly from a handful of them. I think they understand what's at stake. They just want to make sure that the process is open and that there are no hidden bombs here, that everybody understands what's ahead. That was the basic message that I was conveyed, and that I understand completely. I agree with you, Mary. There has to be a very natural balance between business interests and a community's quality of life. It certainly seems to me, in both the South Street instance and in the abutting streets up at Lowland, that balance has been out of whack for quite a long time. And so our board, I think, is looking to achieve the balance again that permits quiet enjoyment of those streets, but at the same time allows businesses to thrive and use the routes that were designed originally for their use.
There's even the fact that the road should be constructed differently if you know that you're going to be allowing car traffic versus truck traffic. I mean, that's just some fundamentals there. But Travis, did you want to say something?
When we met with MassDOT last month on South Street, and we were talking about that particular cut through, the town manager from Medway met us at the town line, and he made a remark that kind of resonates with me. He was very boisterous and emphatically embraced the idea of an exclusion all the way out to Route 109. He embraced the idea of an alternative route for commercial vehicles to travel eastbound on 109 and then obviously into Medway. He had no problems with that. But to your point, he said to MassDOT, these roads weren't built for trucks. They were built for milk trucks back in the 40s and 50s. That's it. And he's spot on. The infrastructure does not support these heavy vehicles. And we recognize that. So we're not blind also to the unintended consequence that when and if these exclusions go into place, we're going to see more heavy trucks using the state numbered routes that we talked earlier about that are going to need improvements. Holliston has to have a long-term vision. We can't simply put vehicles on those roads and call it a day. We need to follow through with MassDOT to make sure that the roadways are designed and built for a long-term purpose and use, and we intend to do that.
Also, can we also start enforcing laws regarding them? That would be another piece, but okay, Travis, you talk.
I was just going to say to the business piece, one thing I've been trying to hammer home to everybody too, because I'd like to set expectations, is that we think the heavy commercial vehicle exclusion in some areas is going to be, going to improve quality of life in those areas. But people do need to understand, and especially from a business component, that if business is being conducted on any of these roadways, there are always exceptions to the exclusion, right? So a truck can continue to go to, on Woodland Street, for example, our own building has heavy commercial vehicles go to it, which is the school. And so those are some, address some of the concerns of the businesses, which is that they are obviously going to be allowed to continue to do business. What we're trying to do is not have our sort of side streets that were not designed for this to be cut throughs for trucks, right? That's the intent, and that's sort of what we're going to focus on. I think specific to your question on 555, I think South Street, regardless of any further development of Hoppingbrook, is a priority. Even if there were no further development, it's still a priority because of the impacts that they've already had. Certainly, we are sort of watching what develops there, and that impacts it. But I think either way, we're interested in South Street, I would say. You just want to touch on the public safety component of
Mary, you
enforcement?
glanced over it, but before I get to the traffic enforcement, this article also would fund a component to review noise ordinance assessments. In addition to traffic, we regularly get complaints from residents complaining about noise associated with heavy motor vehicles, and the engineer will be doing a noise ordinance assessment as well. With regard to enforcement, we've had extensive conversations with Holliston PD. Earlier this summer, Chief Stone engaged with the State Police Commercial Vehicle Enforcement Unit in an exercise that was very productive, and they isolated several commercial vehicles, and I don't really know if they were given summonses or any complaints or tickets, but it was a very active day. They pulled over quite a few vehicles. We made it clear to the Holliston police chief that down the road, his organization has to become trained and equipped to handle better commercial vehicle enforcement. He understands that. He has already reached out to similar communities of our size that are undergoing the changes of commercial and personal vehicle use to figure out strategies for training and equipment needs that we're likely going to encounter over the next couple of years. He's very active. He's embracing the opportunity. But again, I couldn't agree with you more. Enforcement is the back end of all this work. If we do everything and then go home, we will have solved nothing. We need to enforce the actions.
All right. Thank you. And to the public, please pay attention to what's going on. This warrant is available on the town website. And there's going to be lots of conversation beforehand, but certainly assuming that it goes forward December 5th, 1 o'clock, it's a Saturday afternoon. It's a little different than doing the holiday stroll, but at any rate, please don't forget and please participate. Until then, I will see you. This is Mary Greendale. Next time.